Welcome back to the In Chamber. I'm your host, Tom Schumann. Today, we're pleased to bring you the third in our series of conversations with the Indiana Chamber's 31st annual award winners. When I had the chance to speak with this person a few months ago for our Biz Voice magazine, here's one of the many things he said that stood out to me. I've thought about it more than a few times since. We were talking about the Amazon model and how it relates to customer service, and part of his response was, quote, "Why is it that when you order a teddy bear on Amazon, they treat it like it's life or death, that they deliver it to you on time? But when you go through a healthcare experience where indeed it may be life or death, you get treated like a number at times. That just doesn't make sense," end quote. Well, when you put it that way, it certainly does give you something to think about. Brad Bostic, founder, chairman, and CEO of HC1, and the 2020 Indiana Wesleyan University Dynamic Leader of the Year. Welcome to the In Chamber.
Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. Brad, let's give our listeners a brief background about HC1, maybe in the elevator pitch format. How did you talk about HC1 maybe about 9 years ago when you started the company, and how's that changed? What's that pitch today?
Yeah, well, when I started HC1 in 2011, I was setting out to fulfill a vision that really started back in the year 2000 when I saw what was involved with my mom's experience as a cancer patient navigating a complex and highly disconnected healthcare system. And I realized that no service is more important to our families than healthcare. And as you said, I wondered why it was that Amazon, who was really emerging at that time, treated it like it was so important to deliver things on time, to treat their customers as a unique individual. But when it was life or death, you got into this different situation where you're treated like a number. So when we started, it was really all about bringing together information in a consolidated way to help guide more tailored care. And the kind of data that we started with was lab results, because I had observed that there was one common set of information across all different healthcare experiences that could tell you the story of what was going on with people, and that was the lab data. So when we first started, it was really all about working with labs to bring this higher level of relationship management so that they could deliver a more precise approach to diagnosing and ultimately help people like my mom have a better, more successful experience with their care.
A little deeper on the lab data. So, personal anecdote. Fortunately, I've not been a heavy user of the healthcare system. Been fairly healthy for most of the time. Have had some back issues this year. So 2 months ago, I go to my physician, and I had some lab tests done. I've since had X-rays and an MRI. But when it relates to that lab data, how does that lab data, that I have done in the medical office, how does that get to HC1, and then how do you use it?
Well, first of all, I hope your back's doing better, and you're
It
way
is.
too young of a guy to be hobbled by that. So glad you're getting it taken care of. So when you look at health, it's not a static thing, as you're pointing out. There's not a one point in time where you can just look at how somebody's doing and look at the information related to them and have it all figured out. Like in your case, you've had this health care issue, and now it's better. So your health is in a different state, a better state. And people who are healthy today may become sick tomorrow, I guess is the bottom line. And so there are a multitude of diagnostic options to determine what's going on and come up with a treatment plan for patients. In HC1's case, we've tuned our cloud technology and machine learning models to utilize primarily lab test results and prescription lists to determine patient risk levels and drive the action needed to reduce that risk by making patients healthier. So while we're not receiving all of the imaging diagnostics and all these other sorts of diagnostic modalities at this point, we're receiving all of the lab testing and prescription information in these populations that we transform into insights to better diagnose and treat the patients. So our system basically connects directly to the source of the data securely and brings it together into a comprehensive patient profile that's updated continuously over time, allowing this consistent approach to treating patients in a more personalized way. But in the future, you can envision certainly the addition of all manner of diagnostic information into what HC1 processes, and that could be inclusive of the imaging as well. But we find that the lab and prescription data gives you a really good indication of what's going on. One good example is you have people who may be taking a medication for cholesterol, and you may see in their lab testing that their cholesterol is still high. And that identifies a risk factor. And it's kind of a basic one, but this happens with people. And that may necessitate, let's say, a pharmacogenetic test to see if this person's on the right medication for them. They might be on a medicine that won't actually work for them because of their unique genetic mutations. So those are the kinds of things that HC1's keying in on that really apply to all patients who are taking medications and having lab testing performed. And it follows this recipe of ensuring that the right patient has the right test performed so that they're diagnosed correctly, and then ultimately also gets the right medication therapy or the right prescription so that they can, be as healthy as possible as they're managing through whatever that healthcare issue is.
Brad, you gave a great summary of when you started the company and what the message was and some of the motivations and really how you had to educate a lot of people about the potential of lab data. The second part of that, I think I cut you off. How has that message changed? What do you tell people today about the HC1 mission and work that might be a little different than it was back when you started?
Well, you're right that I have had to, over the years, really help to educate people on the power of the data and the insights that we're generating. And really, with COVID occurring, people are now more tuned in to the importance of lab testing and lab results, which it's unfortunate that it's taken a pandemic to shine such a bright, hot light on what we're doing and why it's so valuable. But it is the case that you can gain a huge amount of gold from the information that comes from the lab. When you look at where we are today, healthcare is moving to a more value-based approach to healthcare and away from just being focused on fee for service. And so that's why when I started in 2011 with HC1, it was really great timing, and it was the right time to get started with this. So while it was a thought that had been incubating for years, it was the first time that healthcare leaders and health plans, insurance companies were considering how healthcare could be delivered in a much more effective way and creating incentives to keep people healthy so that you spent less money, instead of having people come in over and over and having that be the way that physicians and hospitals make money. So if you fast forward to today, our national Precision Health Insight Network links to 22,000 healthcare locations and personalizes diagnostic testing for tens of millions of patients per year. And how we explain what we're doing today is fully bringing this delivery of precision health at scale. So we're making sure that tens of millions of people a year are getting optimally diagnosed and getting prescriptions that fit perfectly for them. And so, ultimately, we've become the leader in delivering critical insight, analytics, and solutions for very scalable precision health. So in other words, when I say scalable, it means this isn't limited only to one type of cancer patient, let's say, for example. Our approach and our technology is actually able to analyze across millions of patients every single day and find those needles in the haystack where you have high risk of having a bad outcome, and ultimately driving the interventions by engaging folks like pharmacists and prescribing physicians to ensure that people are getting the right care. So think about that example of Amazon. They're using insight about all your different behaviors to determine how to meet you in the place that's best for you. And in their case, it has a lot to do with commerce, right? In this example, it's identifying exactly where to meet the patient in their journey so that you can make those critical decisions about tests and diagnosis and medications that make it so that you're much healthier. And we see this as the real key to unlock the next level of value-based healthcare, not only in America, but ultimately all around the world.
So, Brad, the first 8+ years of HC1, all the partnerships, all the data has the company ready to hit the ground running, so to speak, when the pandemic hit early in 2020. Talk about the efforts then, how your team was able to move so quickly, and some of the products and services it was able to make available.
Yeah, well, with more than 23 billion test results in our platform, and
And growing every
growing,
day,
yeah, and
every day,
growing
every
by
month.
about half of all the tests that are performed in the United States every day flow into HC1. When we saw the pandemic approaching, and with our lab partners really identified that this was real, it was hitting the United States, and it was something that we needed to better prepare for, we were able to mobilize a coalition, including all of these different lab partners we have across the country, to deliver a free service called the CV19 Lab Testing Dashboard. It's at cv19dashboard.org. And what this provides is a window into exactly what's going on with the lab testing and the results for COVID, down to the micro community level. So even smaller than a county, we're all the way down to what's called a public use microdata area. And so what you're looking at in this is what we call a local risk index. And so in this CV19 lab testing dashboard, that's really driving insight based on all of this lab data that was flowing into HC1. We're securely generating this local risk index that gives folks who are in the public health world, in these health systems, with more of a predictive measure that says what's coming, how big is this? It's sort of like being able to have a weather forecast where, rather than waiting to get hit by the hurricane, you can at least have some early indications. Hey, the wind's really picking up and there's a hurricane coming, so you can get ready for that. And so that's what CV19 dashboard provides. So in doing that, we saw a huge amount of demand from large national employers and universities to have this kind of visibility and analytical insight linked to their specific populations. So if I have students that are coming in from all across the country, I'd like to know what those individuals' risk is of having the infection when they arrive based on where they came from, let's say. Or within these large universities that have multiple campuses, what's the difference in each area? And then when I systematically test people, I need to be tracking over time what the results are of those tests so that I can have sort of a digital health ID. So we launched a solution called HC1 Workforce Advisor that actually brings all of this to the enterprise level so that we can help people safely get back together, get back into the world, get back to work. And it's been fantastic to see what our team of really talented, dedicated professionals have accomplished. When you imagine that like 7 months ago, these solutions I just described, they didn't exist yet. Well, this was a true test of the value of the insights we can provide in that underlying platform we've built. And then the team that we have that was really committed to bring this all to life. And now, hundreds of thousands of people are benefiting from it already, and that's growing.
Brad, I love the analogy there to kind of the weather preparedness. It's so similar. While whether we're talking natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, or we're talking the pandemic, we might not be able to control the results, but we can limit the effect by being prepared, and exactly what HC1 is doing. With Workforce Advisor, talk about that a little more. I mean, we're talking here at the end of October, and people will be listening in the next few weeks. There's still so many organizations still plotting that how do we successfully, get back to the office, get back together. Talk about some of the ways you see this being used going forward, not just as a response to what's taking place today.
Yeah, I think what's happened is we've had our eyes opened to the vulnerability that exists to health related issues. And in particular in the US, I think we're used to having a much more secure environment. as it relates to health. And now that we see, hey, this is real, a pathogen can come in and fully disrupt our way of life, we need to take all of this a lot more seriously as a core focus. We need to have health security. We want to get to health certainty, where we know that we can enter the workforce or enter an airport or a university or a shopping mall and or a ball game, and know that we're in an environment that we're likely to leave healthy and safe. And so what we've really seen happen is this emergence of a focus on moving past the old approach of saying, hey, people get the flu, people get sick, and, wash your hands and, we'll be okay, to we'd like to be much more vigilant. We as a large employer, let's say, much more vigilant about how we measure and manage the team members that we have as it relates to their exposure to potential health issues. And so right now we've got COVID, obviously that's very, it's very disruptive, but we're starting to move into this next level where the flu season is starting. And so now you've got COVID and flu, you've got multiple different strains that could be hitting. You could end up with a really complex situation. In fact, we're going to here. And so I think now is the time to institute this kind of ability to sense and respond to these different infection threats to your workforce and your customers. And this is a way basically with Workforce Advisor to do that very systematically with a company that has specialized in optimal testing and prescribing for years, right? So there are a lot of people that are showing up now, of course, saying, hey, we have solutions for this. A lot of big technology companies, a lot of small startups, everybody with an app and their brother is saying, hey, we have some way to help with this. But the real unique value that HC1 provides with Workforce Advisor is this core ability to sense and respond to lab insights that are nationwide and already inclusive of all these different kinds of infections. So it's not just about COVID. It might be about flu, it's about vaccines, and it could even be about other health issues moving forward as well.
Well, I think one of the things that illustrates that, Brad, you told me when we talked earlier about HC1 being invited to participate in a hackathon about, what can we do in response to COVID? And you said you tuned in and listened. There were great ideas, proposals of what organizations wanted to do, and you kind of said, well, here's what we've been doing for a number of years. Here's what we're doing now, and already had all those steps in place. So that's great, and especially going forward. Talk again, one more question along those lines of, and I know it's an ongoing and evolutionary process, but talk about, again, your passion in this area and where you want to see things get to be regarding, personalizing healthcare.
Yeah, well, I think the ultimate destination is this idea of health certainty, where we can trust that all of the steps are being taken to get us the best possible chance for a healthy life. And there are lots of factors, so we'll never get to where we've got no health issues. You can do everything right and still obviously end up with a bad health issue. But in the case where it's possible to diagnose and predict where somebody's heading so that you can get them treated proactively and prevent major issues, that's the way healthcare gets saved. Today, this one size fits all trial and error approach that occurs within healthcare, where you just have gobs of patients, lots of physicians and caregivers who are really mean well, but are so time starved, and they have all these demands to enter data into systems like their electronic medical record. They went to med school 20 years ago and they took lab, for 6 months 20 years ago. And now there's this advent of all these new capabilities like genomics. There's just no way we can expect these mere mortals who are really bright and very dedicated to know everything all the time. And we also can't expect that with the demands that continue to be layered on, we can keep up, let alone do things in a personalized way without some really advanced tools and technologies. And this is why the cloud and artificial intelligence and machine learning are so exciting. And this is what HC1 is all about. It's not about taking out caregivers. It's about empowering every caregiver to be at the absolute top of their game at all times and to facilitate collaboration among caregivers in a very intentional, very efficient, effective way. So, for example, if I identify an individual in a population of 1 million people who has high risk to fail their medications because of a known genetic implication with a medicine. So there are lots of medicines now that we know if you have a certain genetic mutation, you can't benefit from that, or it might even hurt you. And if you could then have a process triggered whereby that individual gets tested for this genetic trait simply by swiping a buckle, basically a big Q-tip in their mouth, in their cheek. So it's not like the COVID test where you have to jam something up your nose, it's just a cheek swab. That generates all this rich information. And then a pharmacist has a dashboard that shows here's what relates to your genetics for the medications that you should be on. Here are all the other potential issues with your medications. And that pharmacist actually can generate a medication action proposal that can be then provided to the prescribing physician. And so that physician then has this partner who's helping them instead of that physician who didn't have the time to go back and study all of these different things, having to, just live knowing that they're not getting caught, making sure that these issues get caught, that a pharmacist is plugged in and they provide the right guidance and ultimately get people on the right medication. And that eliminates a lot of ER visits, hospitalizations, even death. There's so much opportunity there. So back to your original question, where do we see the future? It's about knowing confidently that when your mom goes through a healthcare experience, they're going to get the optimal diagnosis based on the most current diagnostic capabilities. They're going to get the optimal medication therapy. And, ultimately our vision is that even if you're failing conventional medication therapy, we could automatically match people with clinical trials. We have a really big vision that completely transforms the way healthcare is performed, makes it incredibly efficient and effective and personalized. And that's how, when we talk about bringing the Amazon experience, it's not trying to sell people things, it's trying to drive the right specialized collaboration with this data to make sure everybody gets that personalized experience you would want your mom to get.
Yeah, Brad, that's great. Prior to HC1, you were involved starting up, investing in a variety of technology companies in Indiana. One of those, teaming with Scott Jones on Cha-Cha from approximately 2006 to 2009. What are any recollections from those days? One or two things that stood out from that opportunity and working with Scott?
Well, that was truly one of those experiences where we started with the napkin drawing, actually over at Kona Jack's here in Indianapolis on the north side. And the vision was, what if you could ask your mobile phone any question and get an answer back, to that? And this was way before Siri or Alexa or any of those tools. And so I think the first thing I really remember is the vision for what we considered the goal for Cha-Cha was really right on. And then I'd say the other big piece is the amount of talent that exists in Indianapolis. I was really exposed to, and in central Indiana, through our journey with that company and solving this problem of ask any question and get an answer using a combination of human intelligence and technology and machine learning and those sorts of things. But I look at some of the talented people that we worked with, some of whom are with me now at HC1, like Chris Brown, who's my chief operating officer. We've had others work with us over time that like Tom Cooper, who was our founding chief technology officer. And then also some folks like Amin Brar, who's gone on to build a fantastic set of businesses he's now the CEO of JobVite. He was one of our key vice presidents at Cha-Cha. We also had Tim Horho, who went on to be one of the top technology leaders at ExactTarget and now within Salesforce. I couldn't be more proud of the people that we got to work with and the things we were able to accomplish with those amazing, dedicated people. And I think that just proves Central Indiana is a great place to build a fantastic company. We've got the talent, we've got the commitment, and all you have to do is just, get out there and make it happen.
Well, a follow-up to that, that's a perfect segue. We've seen, you've mentioned a few of the talented people, and there's many more. We've seen things evolve in central Indiana and in other parts of the state, and progress made. But what's missing? What needs to happen next for Indiana to become one of those true technology leaders?
Well, I think it's all in how you define technology and how you think about what that means. So there tends to be kind of a romanticism about the Silicon Valley and everything has to be a startup. And I think in reality, when you look at the companies that have grown to be the largest, they tend to be those who become the consolidators. So rather than have every company that we grow here be focused on starting up, getting to a certain point, and then getting acquired, I think we do need to get better at how we create our own center of gravity with some of the consolidators here. And a big part of that's absolutely capital aggregation. So in other words, how can you put together the amount of capital you need to fuel this kind of a consolidation? So once you're performing successfully in your economic model and you have a great big vision, perhaps there are opportunities to navigate that in a way that really will build that next big, thousands of employee type of an enterprise. And I think Indiana has all of the ingredients for that. We just need more people who make the decision to follow that path. And I think Governor Holcomb in our state has done a fantastic job of creating the kind of climate where we can focus on building great companies here with great talent. In our case, with what we focus on related to this idea of precision health insight networks and basically bringing together data to generate precision health capabilities, you couldn't find a better place. You've got a great biopharma company in Lilly here. You've got all the medical device companies. You've got a ton of brilliant people that are coming out of our universities. So we think we can build a real hub for precision health and this idea of bioinformatics signal networks that are generating all this value like HC1's doing today. And it's about, becoming that big company that consolidates.
How big can HC1 become? Putting you on the spot here. What is your company's role or position in this, what you just described, this emerging healthcare solution space?
Yeah, we've really determined that there's a category that we've pioneered, and we're calling that precision health insight networks. And the name is somewhat descriptive. It's this idea that it's not about more electronic medical records getting implemented. Those are necessary, but they're not sufficient. You need a broader cloud-enabled, cloud-native approach that creates a network that connects all these things together. And HC1 is really the pioneer and leader in this idea of precision health insight networks. But we're in the process right now of putting together a national organization based on an event we have coming up here in mid-November about precision health insight networks as a category. And there are a lot of fantastic companies that are filling parts of that category. A lot are focused on genomics. There are a number of organizations focused on more of the clinical trials part of that. Some of them are going all the way down to clinical decision support. HC1 is kind of cutting across a variety of those areas, starting with how do you connect to the lab and going all the way through to how do you optimize care and even get to potential clinical trial connections. So HC1 is playing a critical role in really building this critical mass. Just like Salesforce created critical mass around the idea of using software as a service in the enterprise. I mean, that was their if you think about what they did, they created a category where they said, you don't need to buy software and install it on servers. In fact, they had the little Ghostbusters symbol that was over the word software, And so we're basically out here saying, look, it's now time to step way above what you can accomplish with an electronic medical record and really start bringing together these insight networks. And we need legions of companies doing that in order to solve this problem with healthcare. There's no way one company could solve it all. But I do think it's important for specialized healthcare data science and technology and clinical leaders to crack this code. The big, huge technology companies out there, the Googles and the Facebooks, they'll play a role and they have impact on everything. But for one, consumers aren't really comfortable with those companies being involved with how they manage their healthcare. Whether that's right or wrong, I think that's become kind of clear. And on top of that, it takes a level of specialization that isn't distracted by anything else. And so organizations like HC1 have a real opportunity. I'd call it once in multiple lifetimes opportunity to make the future of healthcare happen at an accelerated pace because of where we sit. And we're committed to playing a leadership role in this category.
Brad, one thing that people may not know about you is you were a college football player, and we're talking a couple of days after, in late October here, after IU opened the season with a pretty thrilling victory over Penn State. But you played football at IU in the mid 1990s. Tell listeners a little bit about that experience.
Well, so I definitely was not anywhere near a really outstanding college football player, but I did get on the team at Indiana and had a great experience with Coach Mallory as my coach. He passed away the past couple of years and was a fantastic man. We went through some adversity as a team, and you learn a lot through that. The amount of rigor you have to put into your training while still getting to your schoolwork. And then in my case, I was working on starting a company in college. Just what I learned about working hard and being with really great people with great leadership, was absolutely priceless. Like that was probably I got a lot from the business school, but I got a lot from that, feeling of when you have to push hard, when you have to get up at 4:30 a.m. to go run when you're buddies are just getting home from the bars or whatever. That was, it was a really big value that I think anybody who participates in college athletics gets to be part of. And, also to your mention, I'm really excited for Coach Allen and the Hoosiers for getting that big win. I think I was in 7th grade the last time IU beat Penn State in football. Pretty cool. If I remember the stats correctly, pretty cool that they got it done.
I recall they kept saying on Saturday 41 or 42 consecutive losses to top 10 teams, I believe was the number. And yeah, and they've been so close in recent years, and it's just that finishing aspect. And I know, and they certainly did that in a great fashion.
Yeah, nice to get that monkey off their back, and maybe now they can go into more games and just get that last big push they need to get the win. But I learned a ton from that, and definitely am glad that I used my alma mater, and the business school was really good to me. I really feel like it was a key part in the path that I've been on, which is another good reason that Indiana is a place where you'd want to build a company.
Brad, last couple things as we wrap up. What do you like to do in your spare time when you have some spare time? What are some things?
Well, I love to spend time with my wife Amy and our kids. We've got 3 kids that are, one's college sophomore age, but she's actually taking a gap year. She's a volleyball player, and they canceled sports in her league, and also went to 100% e-learning. So it's been fun having her back at home, and she actually did an internship for our company, which was for HC1, which was really cool. And then we have a daughter in high school and a son in middle school, and they're both into athletics. And so I love going to their games and seeing them develop as athletes and students. And then we love traveling together. We tend to go on a ski trip every year if we can get there. So it looks like this year we're going to make it out to Colorado. I've been snowboarding actually since the late 80s. I grew up in South Dakota, where like all you pretty much did in the winter was stuff out in the snow. So I was lucky to get started with that. And then I also play the guitar a little bit, but I don't have a whole lot of spare time. So mostly what I do is walk by the music room and look at my guitars, but definitely enjoy that when I get a chance.
Yeah, they're there for someday.
Someday, yeah, exactly.
Last question, Brad. We are asking everybody this season of the In Chamber. When you're thinking about it from a personal or a professional standpoint, either way, at the end of the day, what has made it a great day for Brad Bostic?
Yeah, well, for me, it's 2 things. One is to see that I've accomplished what I need to in the business. And that means continuing to pursue this vision of improving lives with high value care. So are we taking the right steps to make that happen? Is our team meeting the objectives that our customers have for us? So love it when I get to an end of the day and I can, hear from a customer that we helped make their caregivers and patients more successful and healthier. And then in addition to that, I'd say having one of the kids or multiple kids sports to go watch, and getting a chance to have a family dinner kind of sandwiched in between all of that. I never have trouble falling asleep when my head hits the pillow, because we have so much that we're packing in, but love the days when we accomplish what we need to, both in business and personally with my family. And that's it's pretty simple, but that's what makes a great day for me.
Well, Brad, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with our listeners today. Congratulations on the Dynamic Leader of the Year award, and for all the great work that HC1 continues to do.
Thank you so much. I am absolutely honored to receive this award with such a distinguished group of people, and it just gives me more motivation to continue working hard to try to do great things here in the state. And I'm so fortunate to have such an excellent team. I really view this as an award for our team as much as anything, because if you don't have a great team, it's a lot harder to be a great leader.
Well, if you are extra motivated, that's good news for all of us because of all the important work you're doing. So thanks again, everyone. I'm sure you've enjoyed our conversation with Brad Bostic, as we mentioned, the Indiana Wesleyan University Dynamic Leader of the Year. We're bringing you these 4 conversations with our annual award winners in about a 2-week period here. You've just heard the last 2 episodes with Dave Ricks, the Business Leader of the Year, and Dr. Christina Box, the Bai Luger Government Leader of the Year. Coming up in a few days, we'll be speaking with Mayor Tom Henry of Fort Wayne, the PNC Community of the Year honoree for 2020. So again, thank you as always for listening to the In Chamber.